Good morning or afternoon, depending on where you are joining us from. And welcome to our Digi-Live event. My name is Winston Thomas, and I'm the editor-in-chief for CDOTrends. For those who are new to this CDOTrends format, Digi-Live is a deep dive of a single topic. This is unlike a conference where we look at different topics and subject matters. Today's topic is simplifying digital and data, and it is kindly sponsored by Hitachi Vantara. The world of data and digital has gotten a lot more complex real quick. And while we can talk about privacy and security issues tied to complexity, it is also now impacting companies on how they can use data and digital to compete and create value propositions. It is also a major roadblock when moving AI to the center of your future digital strategy. If you do not have your data and digital house in order and you have the right infrastructure to run it, you are going to be outcompeted, outmoded, and outflanked. Now, we know this is a huge topic. So we have two panels looking at this topic from different perspectives. And we have invited key practitioners and solution providers to discuss these topics across the entire breadth. I will be moderating the first session, and then my colleague all the way in Sydney will moderate the second one. One thing to note is that we want you to be involved in these discussions. So please send in your comments, thoughts, or more importantly, your questions using the Q&A button. It's the button that you can find right at the bottom of your screen. Please don't use the chat button. Well, you can, but we will only say hi when we have the time. So feel free to use the Q&A button liberally, and I and Lachlan will be going through the questions and posing them to the right panelists. Right, enough of me. So let's get right down to the first panel. First panel, we will look at data and digital from an infrastructure point of view. The topic we like to discuss is digital-ready IT infrastructure modular? Joining us are two panelists. We have Chirag Desai, Head of IT, Digital and Channel Solutions at the Hong Kong Jockey Club. And from the solution provider space, we have Shamik Ghosh, Vice President and Global Business Lead for Hybrid Cloud at Hitachi Vantara. So should digital infrastructures be modular? Is there a place for monolithic? Let me first invite Shamik to set the scene for the next 10 minutes before we dive right into the discussion. Shamik, the virtual floor is yours.
Yeah, hello. Thanks, Winston. And hello, everyone. I'm excited to come and present to you. I'm actually based in Melbourne, Australia. I have the pleasure of a global role, but I'm excited to see everyone on the call. So good afternoon and good morning to everyone. I believe everyone's in APAC. Just a little bit about myself. So my name is Shamik Ghosh. I'm the Vice President and Global Business Lead for the Hybrid Cloud business for Hitachi Vantara. I have about 10 or 15 minutes just to give you a little bit of background in terms of application services and data, right place, right cost as well. And I hope to introduce the few concepts that then we'll discuss as a panel afterwards. So with that, I'll just get into a little bit about who we are as Hitachi. You know, many of you on this webinar will know Hitachi probably for the big industrial company that we are. Founded in 1910, more than close to 900 group companies. But what people don't realize is, we have a very significant IT and OT expertise in our broader organization. We're actually one of the top innovators globally. You can see the revenue numbers. But one thing to call out is, we are often on the forefront of innovation, on the forefront of patents. And actually in 2022, in the US, we were top 20. We came ranked 20 in terms of the number of patents gained in the United States in terms of registered patents. So with that said, I want to talk to you a little bit more about the Hitachi business itself. So there's a significant number of businesses. As I mentioned before, we're well known for the industrial side of it. But what I'm here to sort of talk to you more about is the digital systems side of it. Digital systems side of it is more to do with the actual IT business. And that's where I fit within the Hitachi Vantara business, which is a fully owned subsidiary of the IT division. So if you look at it, a little bit about Hitachi Vantara, just sort of clicking through. Many of you on this call probably know Hitachi Vantara or HDS for its storage systems. That's what we have got strength in historically. You know, we serve some of the largest customers in the world across each of the geos, and you can kind of see the number of employees and where we operate globally. It's actually really important to understand that over the last several years, a lot of that Hitachi engineering, Hitachi technology, Hitachi know-how, we've been bringing that to our customers to support their journey to the cloud and also to support their journey to modular IT and containerization. And I want to talk to you a little bit more about that today. I have three very brief topics I want to introduce. One is around hybrid cloud trends and challenges. As I mentioned before, I actually lead the global business for hybrid cloud for Hitachi Vantara. So I have a small team around the world, which allows me to actually get great insights from customers in each of the geos. It allows me to have lots of customer conversations, and I hope to share some of those insights with everyone on the call today. We'll talk a little about the Hitachi Vantara strategy and how we're supporting our customers as well. And then finally, we'll talk a little bit about this hybrid IT solutions around modularization, and then we'll get into the panel itself. So the first thing to talk about is we've all seen this trend around the future being a hybrid future. And we have data points out there that says that, you know, going into 2022, majority of customers are looking to run their enterprise workloads in a hybrid environment. So what does hybrid mean? That means having a mix of public cloud only environments, private cloud only environments, and also both together, depending on where the application needs to sit and where the data needs to sit. So this is something that we know is an emerging trend. It's here today. And a lot of our customers that we talk to are looking at what to do to capitalize on this, where they've got either investments in public cloud or investments in private cloud, and how to bring the two together. So what's sort of driving these demands for hybrid cloud? So if you look at the top-down demands driving this, it's really interesting in terms of what is IT itself. And you can look at the top here, and it sort of talks about going from the development model to application architecture to how you package it, how you all then deploy it as well from a storage perspective. And each of these technologies have changed, whether it's the development model itself, developers now moving from DevOps to actually moving right down the path to infrastructure as a code. Application architectures going from monolithic to microservices. Packaging, we went from bare metal to virtual services to containers, and it goes backwards as well. Data centers going from dedicated data centers to hosted to hybrid data centers. And then in terms of storage, going from scale up to scale out systems to software defined storage. What's really interesting as we talk to customers around the world is not every customer is on one category. The customers are in different points of their journey in terms of whether they're either going to microservices. So a lot of them are still on monolithic architectures for their applications. And we try and understand why that is, because what we often find is those customers maintain those monolithic applications because they're looking for the performance at the right cost from that perspective. Then we see some other customers moving to full containers, container-based architectures. And that's because they're looking for how to leverage the best of both worlds in terms of private cloud and public cloud. So these trends are really driving these requirements to move through a hybrid IT infrastructure where modularization is a key trend that's happening at the moment. So what does this mean from a challenges perspective? And again, this is a really interesting slide, and I'll just spend a few minutes. We in the industry, and this is globally, not just in APAC, we face a lot of these different challenges, and I'll go through one thing at a time. We know skill shortages is there. We know that there's been such a rapid growth in services over the last couple of years that there's been a lot of retraining, a lot of skill shortages that have occurred. So this is not just about how do I move my applications to the cloud, but how do I actually maintain visibility of my data as I'm moving my applications to the cloud? Who's going to do that for me? How are we going to get the best of both worlds? So this has been a key trend. And this data points, a lot of these data points are from McKinsey and also IDC, externally referenceable, that talks about there's a key skill shortage and 40% of the organization will need to be trained. So as we move down these trends that we talked about, retraining is a significant challenge for a lot of our businesses and organizations. Next one, data copy. So what's really interesting, as the focus has been around developing and moving to application first environments, class first environments, there's been a lot of developers that have been developing applications, but then trying to get access to the data. So what we've actually found is a a lot of these data copies are actually getting duplicated. So if you're running analytics workloads, for an example, we know that outcomes are what a lot of customers are looking for. Then you need to get data from where it's stored into cloud to do the analytics engines. But what we find is often for a lot of data sovereignty or data governance reasons, copies of data are made. So rather than having a master table, copies of data are made into cloud. And these then, sort of accentuate the problem that we face in terms of observability and management. So this is another key challenge that IT departments face. Data growth. We know that data gets created once and never gets deleted. So data growth is an exponential growth. Here's a data point from IDC that talks about 36% growth. So we know that this is a trend that's happening in the industry. And this is actually quite a key element of how do you then manage the data? How do you put the data in the right place, the right cost, and the right performance as well? Cloud native applications. So this is kind of linked to the skill shortage. So to take advantage of a lot of these new architectures, you need to be able to go to cloud native applications. You want to be able to run that in a cloud first environment, but that often requires you either lift and shift, but often actually rewrite the application. So how do you rewrite the application all the way through to your DevOps environments? So this is a key kind of growth, and then links to the skill shortage. This is a new area for people to learn. And what's really interesting amongst all this is IT budgets are flat. We know this, that everybody is asking for more with less. So how do you optimize your spend? How do you actually, do more with less in terms of your IT budget? So what does this mean? So we just listened to some of the IT challenges that we face, but businesses are also facing significant challenges when it comes to these sort of demands and trends that are going on. So let me just cover the three of them very briefly. So the first one is around customer experience. So we know that we need to have an application that works seamlessly, whether it's in the cloud or on any devices. So that means that if you're running an analytics workload, you expect that workload to work immediately. So not wait 3 hours for the response to come back. So that requires an architecture to be able to support that. So if you just migrate an application, and we have many examples of customers actually migrating applications to the cloud and actually saying, hasn't quite worked the way we expected for whatever reason. So now we're trying to rebalance this. We're trying to rebalance our applications to make sure that they work in the right place. Security and compliance. So, we'll have a panel discussion with Shira. Again, this is a key topic of ours. We know that data security compliance sits with our customers. So one of the things that I encourage as I'm out there talking to CIOs as well is, please know where your data is, because data, when it's created and duplicated, it actually makes it very difficult to observe and to manage as well, because security and compliance sits with you. And there are many examples in our region, in APAC, of security breaches that have taken place. So these security breaches can be very expensive. So from that perspective, please know where your data is, and please ask your IT departments to know where the data is actually flowing to. The last one around total cost. So we know cost is a challenge. We know that budgets aren't unlimited, as I mentioned in the previous slide. So how do you put the data in the right place? And this is actually a very important aspect of reducing your total cost of ownership to make sure that cost is also taken into account when it comes to modularizing your IT environment. Gonna move to the next one around the Hitachi strategy. And I'm going to move fairly quickly through this next section. This slide, as you can see on the screen, is designed to be complicated, because once you're looking at hybrid cloud technologies, the main thing that we've learned is it's not the same thing to everyone. Depending on where your business is at, your eye is probably going to get dragged to that environment. So what we sort of encourage our customers to do is to think about what are the things that are most important to them, and to actually move from managing sort of, not managing infrastructure, but to actually manage service levels and workloads. So, and we have solutions that go from edge to core to near cloud and to public cloud. So that's sort of the way we've been thinking about it. So instead of having infrastructure management, actually manage service levels, and Hitachi can help you with that. So what's our hybrid cloud story? The hybrid cloud story is effectively looking at three dimensions of it. You can see it on the screen here. There's obviously on-premise. And as I mentioned before, we have many customers that run their mission critical enterprise applications on our equipment, on our infrastructure. And that's important because those applications are critical to the business. What we've been able to do now is actually take those applications and support it across a distributed environment. So whether you're going from private cloud to public cloud, we're able to do that. And we're also able to support cloud applications. So you can see we actually have deep partnerships with each of the hyperscalers to bring that to life as well. This is a sort of a key element in terms of how do we evolve hybrid cloud. And what we've typically seen is this evolution of hybrid cloud has been around infrastructure architecture. There's been a lot of debate about, is hybrid cloud a thing? And actually what we found, it's an operating model that extends your traditional all the way to the cloud itself. And so what we found is, traditional infrastructure often requires technologies to be able to connect that into environments that are cloud environments or cloud-ready environments. So that could mean going to software-defined, as an example. We know that there's been a key trend. We talked about that in the sort of the opening slides. So how do you move to software-defined? And some of these terminologies are solutions that Hitachi brings to basically modularize your IT so you can move to a software-defined environment. Near cloud. So near cloud is a really critical element for us, because what that is often what we found is, because the data is being moved around in different environments, we need to be able to keep control of that data. So whether you're doing a backup or a recovery or scaling your compute requirements, it's often easier for your data to sit in an environment which you can connect into multiple environments. And last, hybrid. So again, we know that outcomes are what customers are looking for. We know that customers are looking to get specific data analytics as well and workloads. So we're working with many of the major players that are listed on this slide to make that a reality and to actually make public and private a seamless experience from an automation, management, observability point of view. This one, just a little bit of a click into what it means in terms of getting hybrid cloud and getting the best from both worlds. So if you look at the left-hand side, there are a lot of things that public cloud brings, which is your data security, consistent performance, availability, flexibility. These are what public cloud brings. What we've been able to do with these sort of solutions is actually you can see the application sitting in the cloud, consuming storage in a hybrid environment. And what that does is it's a very important element of how you're starting to then modularize your IT. So you're still getting the same experience that you would expect from a cloud environment, and you're actually now consuming it cheaper, you're scaling it better, and now you've got a cloud-ready environment where if the two clouds are different, you can see the top and bottom, you can actually run those cloud workloads, but then know where your data is. And I think that's really important for a lot of our customers, especially customers that have regulatory and compliance reasons. And we'll talk a little bit about that. And the last slide that I want to present is around cloud extensibility. So again, we know that if your application is in the cloud and you're looking to extend that cloud environment into an on-prem environment or a co-located environment, we have solutions working with the biggest hyperscalers to make that happen as well. So this is, again, sort of tying back to put your data in the right place at the right cost for the right performance, and having the ability to do that across multiple environments, focusing on the applications and the microservices that are needed. That's actually quite key to what we offer. So with that, that's the end of my presentation. I'll hand back to you, Winston, for the panel itself.
Thank you, Shamik. Shamik, just a quick one before I jump right into the discussion with Chirag as well. You mentioned data observability. So I'm just wanting to understand what is the main push towards data observability, because we have been talking about it for a while. Is it data lineage that is driving it? And how is that different from telemetry and monitoring that is also being done at the same time?
Yeah, so, data observability is, again, a fairly broad topic overall in terms of, I guess it's like hybrid cloud, depending on who you ask. What we find is, and we've done surveys around this, is for us, data observability is where is your data moving to? Because now you've got data that's moving around because every application is generating data. So having a cloud management platform that sits over the top that allows you to contain and maintain observability of your data is kind of the key trend that we see. You talked about, telemetry. So that's definitely data that's getting streamed into singular platforms. But then what are you doing with that data at that point in time? So that's something that we look at from an observability point of view. And we're also working with partners to make that reality as well.
Thank you. Okay, let's go into the discussion per se. But before I ask Chirag to join us, I'll again like to remind everyone, please do participate. I've already seen questions coming through. Please do get the questions through. For those who are looking to ask the questions but do not know where to find the button is Q&A. right at your bottom. Please ask away your questions. I'll be moderating them, and I will ask, and I'm sure our panelists are waiting to answer them. Now, Chirag, getting you into the discussion itself, we've been talking about modularization for some time, always with agility and flexibility as one of the main goals. But why are we still stuck in a predominantly monolithic world if you really look at the landscape?
Hi, everybody. Good morning. I'm Chirag Desai. I'm the head of IT and digital channels here at the club. I've also got a previous life in Europe and the US where I was the global head of delivery for William Hill, which is a sports betting and casino gambling company. So I'll probably give some examples from Hong Kong as well as Europe as I answer some of these questions. I guess in terms of the why are some in monolith and why are some in transition, I guess within this industry, betting and gaming, it's partly driven by regulation. Because in Europe and other places, there are very specific technical requirements that you have to fulfill to get your gambling license and then maintain adherence to regulations. So in Europe, you could have the UK Gambling Commission or the Gibraltar Gaming Commission. In the US, every state has its own legislation, and then that drives what you can modularize, where you host solutions on edge solutions, where you keep your data. So certain data can only be within a specific state. Other data can be sat in the cloud where it sort of spans multiple states. Hong Kong is a little bit different where there is no sort of similar gambling legislation or technical requirements as such. So we operate in a very different self-regulation type environment. And that has historically led to, well, we have a data center, we'll just put everything in the data center and we'll build a monolith, right? So that push, the regulatory push and the competitive push isn't quite the same here. That said, we have begun our own journey, to sort of begin that journey from two sides. One is the monolith technology gets older, so it's a little bit heritage in some areas. So there's a technology shift. There's a demographic shift rather. So the last 3-4 years have all been through the wonders of COVID and the protests. So we've lost a lot of people. So that then lends yourself to, well, if you have certain colleagues who are, I guess, retiring and they're going to move along and you need to bring younger colleagues in, they don't want to run a monolith either. So we're beginning to then try and then shift both to serve our customers, but also sort of, keep our colleagues enthused about the moving towards newer technologies, more modularization, whereas perhaps in Europe, the framework exists and almost pushes you towards those kinds of things.
Are there areas that you think that we can push further in your establishment?
So I found here, actually in other places as well, historically, it's the front end side that's always been the one that led the way. You could always justify improving the customer experience. So whether it's 10, 12 years ago when riverbed devices came in and hey, you legally have to put your casino download in Gibraltar, but your customer is thousands of miles away in the UK. Are you really going to send a 100 meg download for a desktop poker client to them that way and delay their customer experience? Or can the source file be in the regulated jurisdiction and I compress it and send it the other side? We then sort of using CDNs and various things like that. So then putting more applications, decompose it from the monolith, put it in the cloud and use those kinds of things. So that was easier to begin the journey because you don't touch the core betting system, you don't touch the bit that makes the money. So as long as you don't touch the trading system, the wallet and some of those things, the boards have been much more open to modularizing the cut and decomposing the customer facing side of it. And those technologies and those patterns are there. So you can learn from other industries, be it, what we did in casino gambling first, which we then applied to sports betting. And then, and many other organizations have gone down this road. So it has been relatively easier for me to convince even the board members of the club that the front end side, we can begin to decompose that without too much or very little impact to customers, while we then think about what we do with the core racing system, the betting systems, which are clearly very critical, not only to us, but to Hong Kong, right? So.
Thank you. Shamik, your thoughts on what Chirag has mentioned?
Yeah, I was actually going to say that this is, you're going to spot on in terms of the trend that we're seeing. You want to use web applications, right? You want to use cloud systems, but then what Chirag just said, a lot of our customers, especially in these sort of regulatory environments, they're putting their data because it's easier, right? It's easier as well. But now we're seeing the two connecting, right? The two connecting, but again, clearly making sure that you know what's connecting to cloud, what's data's flowing between the environments. And Chirag, there's a lot of sovereignty requirements as well, right? Not just in government, but your industry as well, and financial services industries as well. So that's something that we see globally as well.
Yeah. We have challenges. If you look at Hong Kong specifically and what we do, we have a business here in Hong Kong. I have a clubhouse and a racecourse in mainland China. I have customers' data in mainland China. And obviously, how do I, data lineage and all those protections there, how do I make sure that I don't mix that data up and fall foul of the law, but I can still get a view of what my customers are doing in Beijing and in Hong Kong. In other parts of the world, it's, I can't, financial transactions, so they legalized or allowed US citizens to gamble within specific states, but the Wire Act still applies. So you can't move money around and all these kind of things. So you have to be very careful. The technology can allow you to do those things, but you'll fall foul of some other issue.
Yeah, it's absolutely. One thing I'll add to that, Chirag, is, when you're running analytics engines, now you need to get access to that data to understand what your customers are doing, because that becomes more valuable. So again, putting in policies in place, putting in the right technology in place to make sure you can still access your data, but it's protected data. So you're not moving data out of those environments, but actually running those workloads maybe closer to the edge. That's something we find as well, where you mentioned telemetry before, right? We find that a lot of those kind of industries are running it closer on the floor, so that the data is not getting all the way back to the cloud, with actually running the edge compute type environments to get the outputs that you need in that contained environment itself.
Yeah.
Especially when you're talking about autonomous vehicles and all that, we're talking about near clouds and edge clouds a lot more. And even manufacturers, they are looking at edge clouds a lot more closer nowadays, because it's all data driven. Having said all that, I'd like to go into a question that one of the audience, and I think that's a good segue to what Shamik just mentioned. How critical is it to solve data access controls and control risks that regulators want for cross-border access? Does the use of cloud solutions then get hampered by this? Maybe Shamik, you can talk about this before I get to Chirag.
Regulatory environments are key for the reason people run it on-prem. When they run it on-prem, they know where their data is. It's something they can control. So that's why they run it. I think, unfortunately, what ends up happening is, as Chirag said, there's people now want to develop faster, right? They want faster applications. They want, faster development. They want CI/CD pipelines. They want DevSecOps. So they want all these kind of environments to get that faster. So what ends up happening is you start to create these, silos within organizations, is what we've seen. So you start getting environments where there's teams that are parked on the legacy category, to use that word, and then there's teams that are parked on the other category, and there's literally a boundary between the two of them. So what we often find is our customers say, I want all this stuff in the cloud, but I can't touch that data. I can't touch that data. And actually, that's even operating model-wise, we've segregated that data out. So yes, so the cloud solutions do get hampered to some extent, because now you're because of the regulatory issues, you're not getting access to the right data to get the right, insights that you need from that data. So this is a challenge for us, sovereign challenge. So if you look at a lot of the hyperscalers, and we work with a lot of them, they're now looking to deploy their services completely disconnected on the edge, right? We sort of talked about that. So that's sort of a way to get around it. So now you've got cloud solutions, but they're actually running on-prem right next to where the data is for regulatory reasons. I'll hand to you, Chirag.
Yeah, and actually that problem is an interesting question, because in many jurisdictions, that problem actually gets worse from the other side as well, because when you've got frameworks, the GDPR type regulation, where customers can log in and say, I want you to forget about me. These bits of data that you've collected, I don't want you to collect that anymore. And you have to be able to prove to them that you've cleansed all these islands of data and the insights that you've got off the back of it, and all the way through the chain that says, I completely cleansed you and I'm no longer using that data as part of the analytics that I do about you as a customer, right? So it's both sides of the coin, if you will. So,
and it becomes a big issue if you have a fragmented data landscape, correct?
It's a nightmare. Well, if you've got data in every state and then a master system that's set in another country and you're having to synchronize all this data, I mean, it's a hard enough job getting it all done anyway. And to then say, I want you to forget these specific data points about these specific customers in this specific context. For some of those solutions, you're going to think a little bit ahead about what if that came to my world, what would I do?
That's interesting. Now, diving in slightly into the modularization, and I want to do a slight segue to what Shamik was mentioning, DevSecOps. We have been talking about DevSecOps. We have also talked about DataSecOps, where you are getting the security practice as part of the data CICD pipelines. I'm just wondering, is that mature enough to actually look into as a practice? Are we there yet? Should companies wait? And where are we finding the talent to actually do? Because we don't have the Scrum masters enough to fill up those DataSecOps kind of seats. What do you think, Shamik? Sorry for that 10 questions in one.
Yeah, no, that's no problem. I think, this is a really interesting question for us. And what we find is, as soon as you start talking hybrid, the first thing that comes in is, how do I protect my data in transit? So how do I protect that, right? So I've got our young developers that Chirag talked about, right? They're writing code that's, deploying container-based applications in your network itself. But how do I protect that data in transit? So what we find is, it is difficult to get the skill set, but what we then find is we need to be able to bring partners to the table, right? You talked about Riverbed before, but there's plenty of, security partners that our customers also work with, where we're now bringing these parties to the table because they're providing a skill set that's complementary to where the requirement is around applications. So protecting the data in transit is actually really, really key for us. And that's what we find, especially when we are looking at a hybrid environment, is, going from DevOps to DevSecOps actually requires a little bit of understanding of both sides. So know where your data is going and ask, is it protected? How am I protecting it? Because if you don't ask that question, someone else is responsible for doing that. And that's when you have a breach.
Data security is a big thing for you, Chirag. What's your thoughts on that? Data security is a huge problem. Well, it's a huge challenge. Betting, gambling, if you will, it's a trust business. You trust me with your data. You trust me with your money. I'm going to be very, very careful about this. It's security is. Somebody asked, what's more important to you? Speed or security or resilience? So all of them. I had to do, particularly in a competitive environment where I came from, where I could lose a customer off the back of that, or I could lose a license off the back of it. It is, all of these things and more are equally important. The other side of it is that there are a lot of products in the market. There are a lot of tools. I mean, Shamik spoke about some of this before. The challenge is it's a people one. Even if you can find the people, it's changing the culture of your organization. If you've been living in a monolith world with lots of people and segregation of concerns and all these things, to now say, I'm going to get a pipeline that's going to go straight from the repo out to production and nobody touches it, people get very nervous about this. So it's hearts and minds as well. Yes, we can talk about regulation, we can talk about the tooling and the patterns, but you've got to help your teams make the journey. That's actually where I'm at the minute, is trying to get my teams to make that change. It's all very well me saying, okay, you can use this and you can use containers and all that kind of stuff. But that's the easy part. But the money and the tech is the easy bit. It's getting people to change very ingrained ways of working is the challenge. To your point, the view is, well, because it's all paper-based and manual, I have security, I have governance, everything is here. And if you remove all the people, it's not secure. Yeah. So you have to convince people it's in many ways more secure and more reliable to do it in a scripted, deployable, repeatable manner than the very paper-based way. But it's a people challenge, really.
Shamik?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, I totally agree. I think, that's what we find as well. When you're thinking about this, having, I think the key word there is mindset, and it's a culture as well. And those things, I've spoken a little bit about our customers, but, we have the same sort of thing internally as well, right? In terms of, how do we deploy as well? How do we operate? It's the same sort of environment. So it's extendable across both.
And I'm just wondering, Chirag, you mentioned that you're moving towards a more modular, what called data infrastructure. Now, when you're using containers, there is the issue where you have developers who might be touching the infrastructure through infrastructure as code. So there's a lot of blurring of lines. These teams used to be very separate. They don't really talk to each other, might even hate each other. But now they are asking them to talk the same language because that's where you're moving towards. Mm-hmm. How do you get them to talk to each other? What kind of platform are you using to make sure that they are having the same idea moving forward?
So we've it's a challenge. I'm not saying that it's solved just yet. There's a lot of I wouldn't say divide, but there are colleagues who feel that we are the physical infrastructure people, and then the cloud guys go, I don't want to talk to them. There's other people, and what then happens? They often they work at cross purposes to each other. So we've had to put together a lot of forums, a lot of co-training. We've put hybrid teams together. So you are now one team. Even if it's a VM or a container, it has to sit on ultimately some physical infrastructure somewhere in our data center. We have our own data center, so it's a little harder to sort of be completely separated from that data center. But a lot of it is getting people in rooms and sort of banging heads together. You are now one team. You're always one team. You're just doing something a little bit different to it, perhaps you were. But it's back to that culture thing. But we are trying to do this. We move everybody to new shared tooling in terms of this, just sort of on the information side, everything's in Jira, everything's in Confluence. It's not buried in somebody's SharePoint page where I don't have access to it. We try to ensure full transparency. If I don't know what's going on, all the documentation is there. You know exactly who to go and talk to and share that way. We have a lot of design boards, these things where people, even I go to some of these now to say, hey, what's going on here? And each side of the, is every stakeholder aware of what's going on, what their part is, and don't be afraid to ask the silly question. This is I have found the last couple of years here, it's a sort of a face-saving culture, and nobody really wants to ask the silly question. So often I'm the first one to say, let me ask the silly question, and then that sort of gives others a chance to speak up, because often colleagues don't know what to do. And they feel that they don't have the right, I hate to use the word safe space, but that kind of environment. What we have tried to do is the last few years, the new leadership here is trying to bring a slightly more European way of working, which is ask the question now, not when it blows up. So,
Shamik, from Hitachi's point of view, how are you helping customers actually address this challenge?
Yeah, just to add on to what Chirag said, what we often find is customers have a preference as well. So within the organization, the two sides of the coin that Chirag sort of talked about, you've got strong preferences. Maybe I'm a strong VM person, right? I want to just do VMs. And then that means VMware. And then you've got another camp that's like, I want to be completely different. I want to be Red Hat based, Ansible, Red Hat. I want to be. So now you've got a clash of minds. And what we find is, we often are now engaging customers on both sides. So we're going and saying, actually, we need to bring these two teams together. Just like Chirag said, bring these two teams together, and actually let's put everything on the table in terms of what's the outcome that you're looking for. What's the outcome? What's the time? Because the industry's moved, you're able to actually go and deploy services quicker, meet the outcomes quicker, get your security right. But that means that you sometimes need to put your, your preference on the table and then focus on what the outcome is. And that's what we see with customers as well. And look, I agree with Chirag completely. It's no one solved this yet completely, because this is a bit of a cultural shift, as Chirag said, and the journey that customers are going on to say, we need to go from monolithic to microservices and modular, but along the way, we've got to solve these problems. And how do we solve those problems? Because people are solving those problems. So it's sort of coming back together from that perspective. Technology, process, and people are meeting together in the middle.
Thank you. Again, to the audience, please do ask your questions. We are open to any of your thoughts, even comments. But if you do have your burning questions, now is the time to ask. We have Chirag and Shamik online, and I'm sure they're happy to ask. Just trying to change a bit of tech here. We've been talking about IT as it's an isolated, what do you call, function. But it's not in a lot of actually companies. Especially when people are now integrating operational technology as part of IT as well. So I'm just wondering, when we are talking about data modularization and looking at data, and as we are moving to integrate OT systems, what are the challenges that people need to be aware of? Maybe Shamik, you can look at, because you mentioned OT right in your first slide.
Yeah, I guess one of the things that we talk about with Hitachi at a limited level is, how does IT and OT come together? And in fact, Hitachi Vantara is the department that brings the IT components to OT together. But what we find is, operational technology, it's another step further in terms of the experience and the expertise. And I'll give you an example of Hitachi Energy, right? This is one of our sister companies. We bought Hitachi Energy a few years ago. And there are many elements that are OT elements, right? Either they're PLCs or they're actuators. They're sitting on-prem, right? They're all connected somehow now. They're all connected and they're generating data backwards. And basically, you've got a camp that is the factory or the energy plant that actually doesn't want that data to get lost, because we're very protective of that OT data, because that's critical to running that factory more efficiently. So, but now you've got that data going to the cloud, because that's where it ends up, because you need to run analytics and machine learning on that data. So what we find is, this world of IT and OT coming together, but also at the same time facing challenges, because to get data out of the factory floor, how are you going to do that? Because you want to run edge compute now. You want to run the edge machine learning on the edge. But then at the same time, how do I then leverage that across multiple locations? Because the OT systems are not just in one area, they're across multiple areas. So what we found is another example of where we're trying to get it to the cloud is, again, to secure. How do I secure those OT devices and the data that's coming out of it? So that's something that we found is, and again, getting the challenge that we found with that is, it's difficult to convince the end customer. It honestly, my experience, it is, because they want to be able to protect the data, but they want the insights. So it's sort of like, are you 100% sure that my data is protected? Are my OT devices going to get hacked? Because sometimes they're basic devices. So are they going to get hacked? So these are challenges that we face every day with our customers that we talk about from an IT and OT perspective.
Chirag, wearing your experience IT cap, just wondering, what are your thoughts in terms of the IT OT? Because we are also talking about a different culture as well.
So so this is a journey where we are sort of have some experience within our beginning here at the club as well. So we have a clubhouse. So I also run the technology for our clubhouses, for our race courses and things like that. So a lot of fixed assets. We have IoT devices that keep the lobster tanks at the right temperature. So they monitor the temperature of those tanks, and there's a sensor that then sends to a central system to make sure we don't cook them before they're ready, and things like that. So there's a lot of discussion about those devices, where are they placed, how are they collecting the data, where is it going again, all those various things. So it is a challenge to get it right in terms of make sure it's the right machine in the first place. And then how do you then orchestrate that and then put it back so we get the right level of observer. But it's no point wiring it up and then nobody gets the right alert to say, hey, the tank's got a deviation on temperature. So there's that part of it. We have already done some work, and we're doing some more on that front over the coming years. We also have, assets in terms of horses. So we have horse logistics. So most of the horses that run would run tomorrow night would come from Guangzhou, and they come across, and we track all the horses and exactly where they are between Happy Valley and Guangzhou and back. So again, all that data is being collected. We're also looking at a smart buildings initiative. We have a lot of physical buildings here in Hong Kong. So, you know, how do we instrument the buildings to make effective use of power and all those various things. So that is a journey we're beginning at the minute. So maybe I'll come back next year and tell you how we're doing.
Thank you, Shaq.
But yeah, even in our organization, it's important. Yeah.
I've seen that there are some challenges for some of you in the audience to actually use the Q&A button. So if you do have questions, do use the chat button, if that's fine. We'll just take the question out there and then pose it to the panelists. So don't worry about it. Please do keep on asking your questions. You could ask to Daniel Chan or you can ask directly to me. Thank you. Now, going to the one part that Chirag, you mentioned, which is about the talent questions and especially creating the right culture. We all do know, look, everybody knows that in the world of IT, there's lots of gaps, talent gaps. And those gaps are always forming because IT is moving so fast. There's so much tooling that's going out there that getting the right expertise, it's no longer an issue. You need to have people who are willing to learn new tools and as well as concepts. So my question is, when it comes to moving from monolithic to modularization, first of all, what is the most significant talent challenge that you faced? And second is, how did you solve it, or how are you solving it?
A couple of things. So when we began this journey some 2.5 years ago, I guess the first of all is it's sort of from the very beginning. So we proposed this sort of the master architecture model, and even many of the architects here said, well, I don't know what that is. So it's from that point onwards, and then you get down to, well, I want to use Istio as my service mesh, and well, I don't know what that is. I'm going to use Kubernetes. Okay, I think I know what that is, and it's everything in between. So it's an educational process each way along the way. What you also then find is then you need to find colleagues who can either move to work in that way. You know, many of our, even in terms of the application languages, you know, the club has historically been a Windows shop. Everything is Windows Server, .NET, all the rest of it. And then I rocked up and said, no more .NET, React framework, or use the containers, move on. So it's retraining colleagues. So many embraced it and they love it now. Many didn't like doing that. So, but we have enough .NET applications where they can still use that, and we can maintain the two until we get more people across. So there's we've tried to, you know, bring as many internal colleagues along the journey as we can. Clearly, we lost a lot through the protests and the pandemic, and then we have then struggled to bring more on. And I wouldn't say that it because there's something about an interesting point about technologies, that you can almost have too many technologies and in play at the same time. So then you have these factions of we're the React people and and then some other guys came on and said, no, we think you should use Flutter framework now. Okay, well, okay, and then then you have this competing technologies thing. So we then have a referee, you know, standards group that then says, okay, well, you propose 5 technologies for the same thing. Which one's going to effectively win out, right? So it's what are the pros and cons of each. So we standardize on one, and then let's build consistently on one of those things. And it's the same discussion we're having right now about observability and all those things. Each silo built its own tool.
Yes.
So I have AppDynamics, and I've got Splunk, and I've got Dynatrace, and I've got Grafana, and I've got ELK, and but no single pane of glass that tells me end to end what's going on. Each person says, I know what I'm doing. So a lot of it is that part of it is finding the right people, and actually very new for the club is embracing that you may not find those people in Hong Kong. You may not find teams of people here in Hong Kong, and you're going to have to nearshore or offshore that work. Now, luckily, I have 60% of my people are in Shenzhen, where actually there's probably a more open market for some of the more cutting or bleeding edge type technologies. I'll give an example. You know, where we're using GraphQL. I spoke to people here about GraphQL and they said never heard of it. In Shenzhen, I got 20 guys go, let's go. So that side of it, but also, we've used vendors, in Eastern Europe and various other places that, for specific things to say, hey, I can't build a team internally quickly enough. I am going to have to go out and get it from somewhere else and then plug that back in the other way. So I guess be open to the fact that if you really want to do it in a reasonable time frame, waiting to build a team in a world of attrition, and if those of you read the paper on Saturday, what is it, 20% attrition? I don't think we're immune to that here in Asia Pac, I guess, generally. You may never build a team quickly enough, a stable team to go and execute. So rely on your partners to bring that expertise in.
Cheng, thanks. And that's a good segue to Shamik. Shamik, how has that changed the way you partner and work with your customers?
Yeah, actually, I just have a point of view on what Chirag just said. I've actually encountered a customer that made a very significant decision to build their capabilities around digital and around applications and very modern applications. And what they did actually is they ended up outsourcing for a period of time, and they built basically capability by doing that. And now what they've done is, and they're about 3 years into the journey, into what they've been trying to do. Now they're insourcing that. So now they've gone from a capability build with their teams to then actually to go to from an insourcing point of view as well, as opposed to just outsourcing. So I guess, I totally agree with Chirag in terms of, look at partners to do that. And your question that you asked, Hitachi Vantara is a very partner-centric organization where we work with some of the biggest partners as well, because we find them an extremely complementary element of what we do, in terms of bringing that skills and expertise to the table. FinOps, we haven't talked about FinOps in this, right? I mean, what's the best way to analyze applications? There's whole practices out there to do that. Data analytics, we haven't talked about that. There's a lot of partners out there that provide data analytic services, cleaning up data and getting into the state where you can do that. So we very much work with them, and we rely on them, actually, to be completely honest, because they complement a skill set that we don't bring. As I mentioned at the top of we know there's a skill shortage. Chirag said that, reinforced that. We know that technology is moving, so we try not to do the best of everything, but to bring partners to the table to make that successful for the customers.
Okay. We have a few questions from the audience. So let's try to get the first one. And we are talking about OT data retention, which usually occurs for a period of 7 to 8 years. And usually it's placed in multiple containers. So how do you actually address this entire issue of OT data retention? Maybe, Shamik, you can take a stab at it.
Great question. It's, again, as I mentioned before, Hitachi, this is something we deal with all the time in terms of getting your data and what do you do with your data, right? The retention of your data. And I think, not to get too technical, I'm certainly not a data engineer, but I think what we find is, recommending specific ways to store that data and the right architectures to store it, whether it's cold storage, long-term storage, but then having the hooks to be able to access that data, right, on demand. So that's, again, an architectural discussion, right? So you want to get the data out, you want to store it securely, you want to make sure that you're not paying too much for it, because remember, the data storage can be expensive. So you're not paying, too much for it. And this is where hybrid environment can help as well, because you can store the data, right? You saw my slide that talked about Cloud Connect. That's basically a data store. Have your data stored in an environment, which you know where it is, but then have that accessible for cloud workloads when they need it. So that's the way we sort of deal with it, with this sort of specific data retention question.
One other question which I wanted to highlight, which is right at the bottom, which talks about tech disruptions and pandemic, and that's for Chirag. We have gone through a period of time where changes we have no control of, and we have to adapt to it. So I'm just wondering, what are the key challenges of using automation and technology to ensure free flow data and analytics so that you can be successful? And I think I can even add on to it technologies like AI ops, and how is that actually helping you to manage a data infrastructure, and what are the challenges that you have faced? Chirag?
So I guess there's two angles to that question. Again, great question. I guess what we found is that through the protests and so that our organization is very much was an office-based culture. If I couldn't see you, you weren't working, right? So, and the pandemic has allowed us to not only work from home, but work remotely. So again, that has then, in terms of the technologies we use, the need to be able to use these other timeless technologies has helped us on that journey. So whether it's very specifically AI ops, all those various other things, it's just to be able to work from remotely. We need to move the technologies forward, and then luckily this is a nice byproduct of that exercise has been the adoption of these other kinds of technology. So it's almost sort of a positive pandemic story. Let me put it that way. Because then you need data to be accessible, you need code repos to be accessible, you need to be able to do releases remotely from the office. So all of these various things have come into observability. We implemented App Dynamics because I'm a race official. I go to the race course and I need to be able to see what my applications are doing. And at some point I was doing it from home because I couldn't go to the race course, but I'm still a race official. So I had to have it on my laptop to see what's happening in real time with all of my systems. If we do a release, you must be able to push the pipeline from your home, not your console here in the office. So in a roundabout way, it's been in a horrible way, it's been a great opportunity to drive a lot of that change because of the need to work remotely. The other, I'm interested to get the panel's views and other attendees on the call is a topic that we've been discussing recently is, God forbid, if there's a war in Taiwan and there are sanctions on US technologies, particularly here in Hong Kong and China, as we are selecting technologies, actually that is also a lens that we're using. It's not just the technology, but where is the technology from? Is there a potential sanction risk? So if I make a massive investment in this technology and all of a sudden I have no support, I have no parts for infrastructure in my data center and my race course in mainland China or here in Hong Kong, then what happens to me? That is a critical problem for me to operate my business, right? So actually some of these things you should probably consider too, is as you invest in technology, in these technologies, for those of you who are based in the mainland or here in Hong Kong, that may be another lens for you to think about is sanction risk.
Thanks, Chirag. I think we have come to this end of this discussion, although I feel that we have just started our discussion on this. So first of all, thanks Chirag and Shamik. And maybe I'll ask Shamik now to just give like a brief 2 to 3 takeaways from your observation of the discussion we have had so far.
Yeah, absolutely. So look, thank you everyone for your great questions. I would love to answer those questions. So feel free to reach out afterwards. This was a great discussion around people, process, and technology, right? Then coming together. I think I really enjoyed that, bouncing ideas of Chirag here in terms of this is as much as a people culture problem in terms of how we effectively use IT as opposed to just a technology problem. Technology is always going to move, but our ability to, enact that technology to reach the right business outcomes, it requires all of us to come together and kind of work through those problems and creating environments for us to do that. From a technology point of view, modular IT point of view, I think, our recommendation or our suggestion is always think about where you're putting your data. Is it the right data, the right place, at the right cost? Whether you're running analytics engines, whether you're running DevSecOps, think about these things through when you make your decisions. And, we're here to help for anything that we can. So I really appreciate the time, appreciate the panel's time. It has been a great conversation.
Thank you. And we have come to the end of this panel. So, and not the end of the Digi-Live, there's another panel, and I think Lachlan is ready to go live. So first of all, I'd like to thank Shamik and Chirag for the lively banter. And I'd like to invite the audience to continue the conversation with them offline. And we will be answering some of these questions, or my colleague will be taking those questions to the second panel. Again, we have another panel now, so I'd like to move over and I'll leave it to my Sydney colleague, Lachlan, who will be talking to you about the convergence of database, analytics, and data governance. Good God. Over to you, Lachlan.
Thanks, Winston, and thanks, panelists. That was a terrific panel, very, very interesting indeed. And Siraj, if you're not afraid to ask silly questions, then I think that's a lesson for all of us, and I'll be emboldened to ask some questions of our panel today. So welcome to our second panel. It's the convergence of databases, analytics and data governance. I'm Lachlan Cahoon. I'm the Australian and New Zealand editor of CDOTrends based in Sydney. And I'm joined by two very distinguished panelists. We have Dr. Anuragya Bhatia. She's the Executive Director and Head of Data Analytics and AI for Standard Chartered Bank, based in India at the bank's Modelling Analytics Centre. And Atikom, I hope I can get the surname correct, Kanchanavibu, who's the Executive Vice President of Digital and Technology Transformation for Thailand-based agricultural conglomerate Metafol Group. So just to briefly introduce our topic, businesses obviously undergoing data journeys to generate insights and integrate intelligence into decision-making. However, the complexity in connecting, analysing and governing data continues to plague data professionals and slow down progress. So today, some of the issues we'll be discussing on how to accelerate the deployment of data initiatives, navigating the fragmentation of data, analytics and governance, and adapting to real-time model learning for intelligent applications. So now to our panel, Anuragya, can I start with you? I understand that while you're based in India, you deal with data from the entire Standard Chartered business. Can you describe your role and your work on Modelling and Analytics Centre?
Yeah, thank you so much. So I'll just get started. So I'm located in Bangalore, and we are the Standard Chartered Modelling and Analytics Centre at India. So we cater the data and analytics support to 18 plus markets across the Standard Chartered where it is available. So for us, the major part is the customer experience, how we can enhance the customer experience. And the more important, I think, for a bank is a customer retention. So all our analytics are focused on how we can hold the customer with us, how we can engage them more with respect to their interest and happiness so that they stay with us, and engaging towards having more customers moving and engaging with Standard Chartered.
Now, Standard Chartered is a large global bank working across many jurisdictions. I know there's a lot of compliance that's particular to particular countries that must be navigated. What are the challenges you face in obtaining and ingesting the data and making sure that it's clean for your models?
Okay, so we have a complete framework where we have the data flowing in, whether it is an in-house, third party, or the external sources into our internal data lakes. So when we have this data flowing into our internal data lakes, we have the processes imbibed where we check for data quality, and we then segregate them with reference to the tagging that we have internally, and then make it consumable for the different verticals that we have inside the bank, whether it is the retail, whether it is the wealth, whether it is the credit card for consumption. Now, to make the systems for us more, I can say, reliable, the quality of data to be more consumable. So we have developed for our retail business another data lake on top of the current data lake that we have, so that it becomes easy for us to consume. And the data is clean because we support with our AI solutions the different markets. And markets, as you all know, have volatility because of the different I can say, pointers which come, maybe political, maybe the customer related. So we have to take care that my data is up to date so that I'm able to generate accurate insights for support for my relationship managers to take it ahead.
So what about storage? I mean, what is your cloud strategy? I imagine, is it complicated because you sit across so many jurisdictions?
Yes, a little complicated because the governance comes into picture.
Yeah.
And right. So every country has their own governance laws. I can't just go and fetch the data from someone else's cloud and say, oh, I'm generating the analytics and giving it to you. Yes. So the strategy is very clear and like to keep it simple, that every country's governance and norms. So we have a regional country analytics team also sitting at each country.
Right.
So that they guide us with reference to the changes that are happening, because internal minute changes, it happens if there's a governance laws change happening from the government, we may not be able to, grasp over it. So we have we have regional analytics teams also sitting inside each country. So they guide us how it has to be done, what are the cloud policies that needs to be imbibed into, and then we interact with them regularly and then take the updates and then develop our models accordingly. So this is a feedback loop mechanism that we've developed. I think it's a very common word, right? Feedback is everywhere important, but our AI solutions also need that importance. If I'm trying to sell a credit card in an X country, the same modeling technique may not work for a Y country. So I need to know every detail of that country dynamics, whether there is any change that has happened, what is the response of the customer over there. So all these are small, minute details that is very important for any analytics. Yes, the cloud storage is important, but we try to also have some kind of on-prem for the countries by themselves.
Yep.
Because cloud storage of data for such large amount of data, I think, as we heard Shamik also before, the cost is important. So we need to work very cleverly so that we don't pay heavily just to retain that data.
And what about sort of regulation and compliance? If I'm wrong, Standard Chartered, you have to operate under UK regulations, is that correct?
UK, yes.
Yeah. And how does that influence, I mean, you're dealing with multiple markets, I think 18, 20 odd markets.
Right. So UK compliance or UK governance is the first step for us. And then going forward, we take that as a baseline. But every country also has their own governance and compliance laws. So we have to also abide by the country's governance and compliance laws. Like being in India, we have some restrictions of accessing data of few countries. So being an India analytics center, we can't have access to that data. So for me, that support will come from another country analytics team, or my team who's sitting in another part of the world, because these are above the UK governance laws. These are the country governance laws that we need to abide by. So yes, these are very minute details that we need to take care of. Otherwise, I think it costs a bank a lot.
Yeah, can imagine. And before I come to you, I'd just encourage any of our any participants or people on the call who have questions for either of our panelists to put them in. I think we're using the chat function there. So yes, we do welcome your questions. So Atacom, can I ask you the same question? Your organization, as I understand, extremely widespread, many different business units, and also a supply chain that extends to small farmers around the world. Tell us about your work and how data features in what you do.
Yeah, thank you for the questions. Hi, as my roles, I'm responsible for technology and also digital and data transformation across Midpon groups. So the group for Midpon, we operate in over 130 companies across 9 countries, like in Thailand, China, Australia, Indonesia, and so on. And our product also run across different categories, from consumer product, energies, biomaterial, and we sold the product in over 116 countries around the world. So as my role, I drive the transformation using digital and data. So essentially, we are operating from the upstream value chain, like with farmers, agriculture area, down to manufacturing, until distribution, logistics, online and offline to the retail. So it is end-to-end value chain that we are working with. So my role is to ensure the transformation run across from upstream to downstream until consumer. So yeah, that is how we are scoping the transformation journeys, and we are also trying to make use of data to leverage our capabilities to both reduce the cost in the operations and also find opportunity to expand the revenues in the new market or new channels. Yeah.
Now, when we were talking prior to the call in the lead up to the event, it seemed as if your organization was on quite an ambitious digital transformation journey. Where are you at with that? Can you describe that? I understand you're starting internally and then you're moving externally. Perhaps give us a sense of the journey that you're on.
Yeah, thank you. We have been doing the transformation journey for about 3 to 4 years now. So initially, we start from having all the leadership teams, executive, to run the design thinking and ideation workshops. What should we transform the organizations? And obviously, digital and data is really critical for the transformations. So far, we have the 3 phases of the transformations. The first phase is to have the digitalization and automations. And the second phase is around the omni-channels and experience management to the customer, the farmers. And last phase is to arrive the new revenue through the new digital business models. So under different business units that we run, different companies, different subsidiaries at a different stage of the transformations. But nonetheless, we have the governance frameworks to manage overall transformation programs across different subsidiaries. The current stage we are in is for the internal transformation, like digitalization, are mostly complete in the core business process. So we have digitalized both the enabling function support, like HR, IT, finance already. And we also have set up the big data that govern the data that we come from a different source, both the upstream from the farmers to the internal operation until downstream with the logistic phase. So we are at the state that we are trying to move next to the second phase, which is the omnichannel, to provide the omnichannel experience to the customer, the farmers, as well as employees.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, a similar question to the previous one. So many different sources of data. Individual farmers, their data must be crucial in building up an accurate picture of what your organization is doing and helping you sort of perform better. What challenges do you face in ingesting and storing the data?
Yeah, so we initially have so many disparate systems. So in like a few decades back, we have so many systems. So we have the system for farmer at individual factories. So in the central area, we have the one set of system. In the Northeast, we have a different system. So the problem and challenge we have is that initially we start from having so many disparate systems across different stage of the value chains. So when we start the journeys of leveraging the data in the Midpoint group, it takes a lot of effort to really consolidate data and make use of it. So we start by having set up the centralized data lake to centralize governance and feed data from different sources. Initially, we start the data analytic based on different sources. So we have data on premise, data on cloud, and the dashboard in the farmer, they start building on different places. And gradually we start to change the data source into the data lake, centralized data lake. So we send the data from on-premise and on different factory, both the farmer side and factory as well, up to the cloud. And then start to design the enterprise architectures that can really govern the data that come from different sources, and then start to have data scientist team and the data engineers to really build the AI and machine learning models out of that. So we are in the stage that we start to centralize, establish a solid governance, and leverage the data from the central and single source.
And what is your cloud strategy? Is it hybrid as well?
Yeah, back to the earlier panel session. I think at the end of the day, we need to have the hybrid landscape. But it could be something like, because we have like over 700 VM on-premise in different data centers now. So we are trying to move them to the cloud to improve the agilities and reduce the asset and capex that we need to run our operation and service. So with that, we try to move to the cloud as much as we can, but I can say that there will be a need to have the hybrid architectures so that we can get the best out of both worlds. So at the moment, yes, I believe it will be hybrid, but the ratio of the what could be on the cloud, what would be on the on-premise or co-location, that still depends on the optimization process that we are running.
Excellent, thank you. And we have some questions from the participants. They're asking about the management of data governance between China and the UK.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's an interesting question. So yes, so what we have is, as I mentioned, UK governance laws remains as our base ground. Yes, China has its own governance laws, so we don't get access to the data directly. So China, we have a regional analytics team which sits over there and does the complete analytics for China. So how do we support from India to China is we have our models, AI solutions designed and developed for different markets on different products. So we try to share those results with them, that this is the market, this is the solutions which are working well in the other markets. But China has its own governance laws, so we can only share the baseline of the solutions that we are proposing to the other markets. So then they adapt to it. UK and China, first of all, the bank being a UK-based bank, so we have to abide by the UK laws and then go ahead and take care of the country governance and laws. So that's how the whole structure works, whether it is China or any other country.
And perhaps this is a tangential question. Is it about where the data is hosted or to whom the data belongs?
Yeah, so data is hosted at a centralized repository, but wherever there is restrictions on the governance laws, like we are not allowed to access all the PII, that is the personal informations. So that is all where the data belongs to the country. And then it is shared with us where it is allowed for us to be accessible. Then that particular, we have a central repository. From there, after the PII masking is done, then we are able to access that particular data. The data actually belongs to the countries.
Right. Okay. Interesting. When we were talking earlier, you did talk to me about several of the data products that you had actually created that were actually being used by relationship management and regional managers in the field to help personalization and to really sort of help begin the transformation of the customer experience. I'd be interested for you to tell us about some of those.
Sure. So what has happened is till now, we were focusing on like a generic approach is to focus on the product that you want to sell, whether it is a fixed deposit or whether it is a term life insurance or whether it is a credit card. We're moving towards a different experience, which is called, I think all the organizations are now moving towards the customer experience or the customer-centric approach. So we try to, rebuild our strategies, talking about the micro-segmentations, learning on the customer's life cycle, that how is the customer behaving? How was the customer behaving in the last, let's say, I'll not take 1 year down the line, but yes, 3 months or 6 months down the line, and then trying to cluster them together or segment it together, the behavior of the customers, and trying to relate to the similar customers. It's like 3 of us on the panel here, maybe my behavior, your behavior, and 3 of us have different behaviors, but somewhere at one product, we 3 are aligned. So maybe I can propose that, okay, Anu has taken X product. Maybe this suits your profile too. Why don't you try for this product? So we are trying to have a cross-skill model where we are trying to propose to the RMs that this is the customer behavior. If I have a 10K base in India, I'll take an example of India. Let's say I have a 10K base in India and I have a different clusters. I propose to the client, okay, this is my customer behavior. And this is the proposed with my AI solution. These are the proposed 3 products that a customer will be interested to buy. So it helps the RM rather than, AI is just supporting the RM. RM knows the customers the best because they do face-to-face conversations always. So they know the client health more than financial health, more than anybody else. But as an AI support, we propose that these are the 3 next products that you can offer to your client. So this helps them engage better with their customers.
And are you rolling out those products in any particular jurisdiction and then testing them and then rolling them out again, or are they going out simultaneously across the markets?
Across the markets. Every market has the different appetite of different customers. So we can't roll a single product to different customers.
Yeah.
Like interesting feature is in Singapore, you can have a loan only if you have a credit card. So we need to, so that doesn't work out for me in India. So for different countries, different products, different customer behaviors, different customer appetites. So we need to study all of them.
So that means you tweak the production of the products according to the local government rules. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. We have to. Yeah. Because otherwise it will be a spillover. Nothing will work out for me because something which works out for me may not work out for the other people.
Yeah, indeed. I also understand that you're initiating some data products as well, and they sounded quite interesting about understanding land plots, for example. Can you tell us about some of those?
Yeah, as for our business, we are focusing on securing the sugar canes that will run into our factories. So we have a lot of data lake, data source that we collect, and we build the data product. And when we talk about data product, I would like to highlight that when we talk about data product, sometimes it needs to be integrated with business solution and digital solution as well. Running only the data alone, sometimes it limits the business use case. But in our case, yes, we have use the AI to classify the land that we operate with. So we are working with farmers across close to 1 million hectares in Thailand and many countries. So by using the few people to really engage the farmer across the country is very high effort. And also sometimes it's not timely respond to the seasonal or the rain or the natural disaster that sometimes happen. So we use AI and machine learning models that build data that collect from different sources like satellite image or IoT, or some data that we input in our digital applications combined together and deliver a numbers of data products to empower the people in the field to really work smarter and better with informed data. Some of the example is land classification. So you have the machine learning model that collect data and based on a different parameter, we will build the model that can classify the land on the map. Which area is used for sugarcane, which area is used for other crop types. And based on that, the team have more informed data about where they need to approach to get the sugar to feed into the factories. Other use case is like we built the crop monitoring platforms that can zoom in by factory and all the land that we operate, which plan with plot is already crop and feed to the factory, which one is cropping is in progress, which one is ready to be cropped. So with that information, the team at each factory can plan how they can approach the farmer and buy the crop into the factories. And the accuracy is already over 95% for this. And we have been testing between the traditional process and the one that we use these data products. So yeah, we already got confirmations that the AI provide good enough accuracy, and for the next crop cycle, we will already start roll out these tools. Yeah.
Now, I imagine that that farmers, and many of your users, would be using processes and approaches to their work that they've been using for decades. So how easy is it for you to get them to use these data products? You must be careful to ensure that the data products fit in easily to their existing processes. Otherwise, they won't use them. Is that an issue?
Yeah, of course, because for I believe most of the countries, the demographics of the farmers is quite in the higher end of the spectrum, right? So they are usually not very high digital literacy. Yeah. To begin with. So we have a couple of different persona of the farmer, how we approach them. For the younger generations, we approach them with a more advanced tool, like mobile applications and so on, that have more features to support their journeys with us. But for those older farmers, the function and features that we provide to them is more limited to the traditional engagement that we have with the farmers, like contract registrations, or just to access the queue, how they send the crop to the factories. So yeah, we have a different persona for different farmers based on their preference and digital literacy, and the tools that we provide need to be limited or make it as simple as possible to those older generation farmers.
And how do they access the tools? And do you have to provide a level of training as well?
We try to make it super simple. So we use the web that integrate to the Line's applications, because in Thailand, it's like most of the people use Line. Even though they don't have email address, they still use Line. So yeah, we try to make it simple. So we integrate the solution into the channel that they normally use on their daily life. so that we don't have to make a lot of change management to introduce the tools to them. But yes, we also have the team on the field that need to provide the training as well as all the support as needed. But yeah, it's still really difficult. Yeah, it will take time to really educate and convince them to use the platform and product that we have.
Thank you. Anuraj, can you tell us the extent to which you're using AI and the extent to which you might be using it in the future? Is that an exponential thing that's happening in your world right now?
Yes. So AI is something I think interesting. So what we're trying to do now is the models or AI solutions that we are building are currently based on either rule-based or as per the requirement of the basic AI algorithms or ML algorithms that we use. So moving forward, we are trying to have what you call a self-learning AI solution, which will start learning by itself so that we as humans have a less interventions. I won't say that it will start deploying into different markets, but yes, for the same market, if I've got a response from a feedback loop from the regional analytics team and it says, okay, fine, our regulations or regulatories have changed with few pointers, the model has to self-train itself and then give us the solution. That's one thing that we're looking out at. And then we have our responsible AI governance framework, which we are moving completely into a AI designed framework. So AI, yes. And that's all we're working towards. And also we're moving towards some of the taking advantage of the generative AI and see how it can help the financial institutions or the bank by and large.
So what tools are you using? Are you using ChatGPT internally or?
Not yet, because it has to go through the governance laws, and then we have to say that how it can be helpful because there are a lot of loopholes there. The data leakage should not happen. If I'm trying to feed in something, my data should not be leaked. So we're still trying to say how it can be helpful moving ahead.
Beyond the governance issue, though, I mean, when you look at that product, can you see that it would be helpful in what you do?
Sometimes we've tried to tweak on the different models and the different inputs that we're looking out towards developing new products that we're trying to build. Sometimes it is, yes, helpful, but we're very cautious so that we don't leak our data. Because for me, the data is critical for me, any model or AI solutions to be designed. But I can't push it to a ChatGPT because that's leaking my data. So I don't do that. But yeah, theoretically, yes, it's able to support in few of the things. I think it's interesting. So it's whether it's a ChatGPT or a Bing AI or just trying to explore the new technologies, how we can, give more AI-driven solutions.
Athicom, you and AI, to what extent are you using it now, and what sort of future do you think it has in what you're doing with data?
Thank you. I think AI is really, it will go everywhere, in my opinions. But yes, as Paddy mentioned, it needs to be used with cautious. So yeah, from the, we would like to make it like universal programs or free-flow data access, as well as the AI as well. So at the moment, it's still limited to the data team, data scientists and data engineer teams, that they continue to build additional models and embedded that into different forms like dashboard or applications. So I think probably the end user or business will not use the AI ML in the same way that we are using now, but somehow we will need to transform them or encapsulate AI and ML into a different forms of use, like to expose them to API and then use it via the applications, or embedded them into the dashboard and then use them to access. And in terms of something like an in-chat conversation type interface like ChatGPT, yeah, I think we are also start to evaluate how we can use it without the leak of the data. We are trying to assess whether we can build the enterprise GPT internally using our own data set, but hosting them and manage most of the infrastructures that are relevant to GPT by ourselves, so that the internal people like sales, marketing, or management can ask the question about our internal enterprise through the intelligence of the GPT capabilities. So yeah, but to recap my answer, yes, I believe AI will be everywhere, and we should really push the adoption of AI to as much user, both internal and external, as much as possible. But yes, data security and data privacy is really something that we need to handle it first before we roll out.
Thank you. Now we're closing in on the final part of the panel, but I would welcome more calls, more questions from the floor. So if anybody has one, please do pop it into the Q&A. Now, Ethel, can I ask you to start with, and I'll ask you, Anuraj, this one as well. What about third-party data? To what extent do you access that? Does it have a future? Are there issues with trust when you ingest it? And do you have a different governance approach when you look at third-party data?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Okay.
Sorry, very Patrick, please.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question. Yes, we do leverage the third-party data. It is important for us because if I give you a simple example of brand and marketing, Standard Chartered is there for the Liverpool Football Club, the data that comes from there, how many people are saying, how many people are engaging. We have a lot of digital footprints, so all those data are important. Third-party data, yes, flows in. There's a lot of cookie data flows in. There's a lot of other data on the different, I can say, platforms which it is available. But when the data is flowing in, there are governance laws so that the PII data doesn't get disclosed. We don't expose the data to the vendors where they're able to leverage the data moving ahead. So yes, third-party data is consumed within the bank, but then there are governance laws. So what are we expecting from them? So that pipeline has been clearly defined. We do consume third-party data. Without that, I think we won't be able to move further, whether it's the credit card transactions, because we need that data to be flowing into our systems.
Yeah, indeed. Ethicop, third-party data?
Yeah, thank you. As for Midpoint, we are run from like the whole value chain from upstream until downstream. So fortunately, most of the critical data are within our controls. So there are a list of the third-party data that we need to take in. But in our journeys, we start to build digital platforms that eventually we need to connect to more data source externally to complete the whole pictures. So yeah, that will eventually come. And we start to explore the governance tools, how we can manage the data, especially the personal data. So we are not having just the tool, we have the governance to manage the personal data, how we assess the risk of taking the third-party data into our organization and have the committees to really decide and what are the process, system, and tools that we need to make sure that third-party data are governance and used appropriately. Yeah.
And what about where your particular functions and operations sit within the whole IT infrastructure? Do you have to? Is it an ongoing? And you're a large organisation. You're sitting there in Bangalore. Is it a case of you're continuing to struggle and fight against other stakeholders to get what you want, or I'm just interested in how, in such a large organisation as Standard Chartered, the IT infrastructure decisions are made, particularly for your area in data.
Okay, it's a good question. So data, I think everybody struggles by the end of the day, but touchwood for us, it being a large organizations, the data, what I can say, the upstream downstream systems have been designed currently very nicely, and the data keeps flowing with all the governance laws and norms in place. Sometimes, due to some reasons, if there is a delay in data, then we have those offline files which we try to access, because we need to have the solutions which go out to the different countries where you have the RM supporting and doing their work. We provide them the solutions. We have the deadlines that it has to go out and roll out to every country. Sometimes if the downstream systems are failing, then we get the data offline. We have those offline systems that we consume. But yes, currently touchwood, the data stream and pipelines are in store, and we're trying to, doing that hybrid culture of still on cloud, on-prem, and trying to make sure that we have governance, we have privacy of data, there's no data leakage or lineage happening. So currently touchwood, all good at place.
Yeah.
Hopefully AI will support us more.
Yeah. Ethicom, I imagine it sounds like you're in the process of rather ambitious transformation. That must have come from the boardroom. It must have come from high up on your organisation, and it must be, I imagine, backed by very senior people. I'm just interested in knowing the decisions that you make around your data infrastructure. Is there a struggle? Are there arguments in your organization? Do people understand the potential of data at a high level?
Yeah, I believe the management support come in the level of, yes, we need to have the big data. It's like the management is family business. So they work with the consultants, and the consultants always share the benefit why we need big data and data analytic capability and drive organization toward that. So the high level have the complete buy-in of the using data and AI in organizations. But it's just that they are not really in details of the technical part or what components we really need to make it happen. So they support that, but we also need to build the business case, use case, but what's going to be the financial benefit and impact back to the business. So it's a hybrid of, yes, they support, but it's not like you can do anything with the data. We always need to have the business case why we are doing this piece of the integration. We are doing this piece of the data modeling. We need to justify the benefit case by case basis. So it is a habit of how we work with the management team.
So what are the KPIs? How do you measure success?
The KPI of the success, we have different dimensions. One is a financial impact, like how much we can generate additional revenues out of using the solution we implement or reducing the cost. But for the non-financial impact, it's more like how we drive the experience of the customer or farmer, increase the adoption of digital platform using the data that we have, and also how we drive the maturity index. So we create our internal maturity index of data and digitals. And yes, with all the initiative, we always compare it against the assessment and try to move this forward across the different BU and countries.
That's interesting. So you're performing well against that index?
Yeah, we are in the middle of the index at the moment. Yeah, we should move to the first quartile by the next couple of years.
Excellent. Anuragta, measurement and KPIs for you.
Yes, as mentioned, yes, revenue is the major KPI where we are able to generate revenues. Being a bank, for us, customer retention and investment of customer, how the customer is behaving with us in his life cycle terms, more important. So how are we moving towards making sure that customer remains with us and we have new to bank customers coming to us? Currently, if you see a lot of our new servicing is on ROTE, that is return on tangible equities that we have. So we're trying, and the sustainable finance that we're trying to work on. So for us, all these have become a KPIs for coming up. But yes, revenue is important, retaining our customers, getting new customers to the bank. So that's something that our KPIs are measured at. How much revenue we're able to generate is major from our analytics center.
That's interesting, though. But how do you understand the contribution that that data and analytics would have made to the retention of a customer, for example?
So it's not a direct impact. So we try to have this feedback loop because we are the analytics center where we're trying to giving solutions to the RAs of the country, and then they take it ahead to their customers. So it's a feedback loop where we keep on interacting and say how much impact we have made. What is the solution that we had provided when we say, okay, you can cross-sell these products to the customer? Was that helpful for us to get those customers for those products? If yes, then it is not a direct revenue that we generate, but yes, there is an indirect linkage that happens from our end.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, I think that may be all we have time for today. I would like to thank our two panelists for their time and their insights and their contributions to what I think has been a very lively discussion. And I'd like to thank Winston and his panelists for on the first panel as well. I do hope that you've enjoyed our Digi-Live event today. Just in wrapping up, a couple of housekeeping things for some initiatives from CDOTrends going forward. We have some upcoming events, the Data Science and AI Trends Asia Summit on the 16th of August. We have the 6th Chief Digital and Data Officer Summit in Hong Kong on the 5th of October, and the FSI and AI Singapore Summit on the 15th of November. So we'd like very much, if you do have some time, to fill out the feedback survey that we have available there from the QR code. That process will enable us to create better events and to engage further with you and to add more value to your careers going forward. And we do very much value your time and would like you to fill that out if you do have some inclination to do so. So once again, it's time to say goodbye. Thank you once again for attending the CDO Digi Summit, and we look forward to seeing you at our next event. Thank you so much.